as promised, today we're doing my spoiler-free review of Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. This is the first book in the Alan Stern series. I don't actually know if it's a trilogy or a we don't know how long series. I don't really know, but it's definitely a series. So that's the first thing. This is not a standalone book. If you want standalone fantasy, you will not find this here. The ending made me want the sequel now, and I don't have the sequel now. But let's get into this book, whether or not you will like it or not, because I think it's fairly popular, but it is also fairly controversial. So I wanted to get my thoughts out there on it, because, yeah, I have a few thoughts. So first, I guess if you just like to hear my thoughts about a book, and you don't want to hear anything else, you like The Art of Discovery, I liked it. It was 4 stars. It was a good book. I don't think it's a perfect book, but I was pleasantly surprised with my experience with it. All right, so with that, if you don't like to know anything about your books, which makes me wonder why you clicked on this video, let's keep going. So the synopsis. So we are at Yale, so New Haven, Connecticut. There are secret societies everywhere. And what that means is that you also have a secret society that has to keep an eye on these secret societies to prevent them from going ethically too far over the line, because these secret societies are magical and paranormal in nature. They are using humans sometimes for some of the acts and in ethically questionable ways. So you have this other secret society that watches all of these other ones. And that's where our characters are. Alex and Darlington are members of this other secret society, and they have to keep these other societies in check. Darlington is kind of the mentor to Alex, who is learning the ropes. This is hard, though, because there are past mysteries. There's more corruption than normal. There are a lot of things going on that make their job very difficult, and that is where we start this book. Actually, we start this book at a future point in the story. So this is one of those books that starts after a big moment, and then you're going to read the story up to / past that point. So let's get into the plot and world building, because like I like to do in my reviews, I like to go through the different parts, but in order of how much I liked them, so you can get my positive thoughts first. And I think for me, the strongest elements were the plot and the world building. So for the plot, like I said, it's non-linear. So you're going to start in what is called late spring. And then you're going to have 2 timelines. You will have last fall, and you will have last winter. And these 2 timelines, you're going to keep going back and forth between the 2. And it's kind of jumpy, but for me it was really engaging and was a good way of, it introduces mysteries. You're like, so I know where we're going, how do we get there, and why is fall and winter different? Like, there are some things that are very obvious, but you're like, how do I get from A to B and then B to C? Because you're given A, B, and C, but you're not given the in-between, and that's what you're going to read. I really like that type of storytelling, but I can see that as a con for other people. And also this world building. Again, a pro for me, potential con for others, is its breadcrumb world building. It's very slow burn world building. You're given the information around the time that you need the context, but you're not given too much context, and it's not, in my opinion, very info dumpy. You do have these sections at the end of chapters where you get to read journal entries, and these journal entries are people writing a diary about this world. So I guess, yes, that's almost like little blurbs of quote-unquote nonfiction for this text, but I like that. I am the fantasy reader who loves when the beginnings of chapters have pieces of text from other sources and I only get these clips and I gotta put them together. That's one of my favorite things. But that doesn't mean it's super straightforward. It does mean that it doesn't help remind you of things you've learned. So if you forget, oh, this society specializes in writing contracts and this one specializes in necromancy, like if you forget that, I can see that being frustrated. There is an appendix / glossary about those things, but I am someone who thinks that if the world building is done well for you, you might not need to use that. And I thought it was done well that I didn't need to, but I had friends who had issues with it, and so it's obviously not for everyone. And I think that, coupled with the nonlinear storytelling, although for me made for a very engaging experience, can be a lot for people, especially if they weren't prepared for that. Now, I wanted to briefly mention some of the bigger trigger warnings for plot points, and this is not an exhaustive list. I would go find an exhaustive list. I'm still working on being better at that as a reviewer, but particularly you have sexual abuse, you have child abandonment, and you also have, well, I already mentioned sexual abuse, but you do have like a date rape scene. And also that scene is controversial in its handling. Like I said at the beginning, this is not a perfect book. A lot of times when you have rape or sexual assault moments in books, it's not done very well. It's usually used for a shock value moment or to further the plot, or it's not about the victim. In this case, it suffers from the last one. I felt personally that any trauma that was brought into this book was actually done very organically. I never felt shocked. I've read a lot of books that really shocked me, or I could tell that's what they were attempting to do in their narrative, and this didn't feel like that. I actually almost felt kind of sad because it was so predictable. It was so, yes, it's a college campus, it's a fraternity. If you've been to a college, you know that these are the things we don't talk about, but that exist every weekend. And so for me, I didn't think it was shock value, but it became kind of a revenge arc, not even for the victim. And so when I heard those complaints from other people, I totally see that. It wasn't an issue for me, and I do think it was true to Alex's character, how she responded to that moment. And that gets me into the characters. These are unlikable, flawed characters, which I do like them. Not like I would be friends with them, but I liked how they were written. I liked how they were used for the story. I did not mind following Alex and Darlington throughout the story, but neither of them are great people. They're not the worst people, but they both come in with their own baggage into the story, and it shows. Alex has this past, and because of her past, because of how helpless she's been in her past, when she saw her friend get abused, she reacts strongly. Now, I'm not saying that that's what the book should have focused on. I'm not saying that it was okay for Alex to do what she did, but it felt like it fit into her character. And I just really liked these characters I could be grounded in. I did feel like they were pretty well-rounded, at least the main two. So one relationship thing I wanted to touch on, and it's actually really small, but it's what made me feel like when trauma is brought into this book, it's done well, is the relationship between Alex and her mom. Alex, like I said, she has baggage, she has a rough past that you learn about in this story, and part of that is she does have this rough relationship with her mom. There's this gap of trust between them. There's this trauma that's never really healed. And it's really portrayed, in my opinion, quite accurately as someone who does have a similar type of relationship with a family member in my life. So it's moments like that, those small moments, that I always felt like things weren't done for shock value. They felt very, like I said, organic. But that was my experience with the material. Now, let's get into the themes, which I feel like is where this story could have been so much more than it was. Because it goes into corruption in society, gaslighting, power imbalance, grief, and I appreciated the commentary, but it always felt held back, and I felt like it could have been more, if that makes sense. So I think, and also this is, this plus how we've handled the rape scene earlier are just really where the story is not perfect. It misses the beats a little bit. It could have done more, if that makes sense. And I will link a 1-star review that I watched that really helped me realize that although I was appreciating the commentary, it was far from perfect. So I'm going to put that down below for you to watch. I really appreciated her review. Although I disagree a lot about her take on the plots and the characters, her commentary on the problematic sides of this book I thought were really eye-opening. And I think she's much more eloquent than I am. Now, the last thing we'll talk about is writing style. This is a thing that was weird to me. I don't like descriptive prose on average because my brain gets like, so many words, I'm so tired, I read a lot of dense literature for work. I don't love that in my casual reading, and apparently this is very descriptive, but I didn't notice. It read really well to me. So I guess in theory people say it has descriptive prose, but it didn't come across that way to me, someone who's really bad at reading purple prose, like really bad at it. Like, I don't love The Starless Sea. I was okay with the 10,000 Doors of January. Like, I didn't feel like those were the pros here, if that makes sense. But people kept talking about knowing every brick in New Haven. I'm like, I did not pay attention to that. So maybe it was a case where I glazed over those sentences, but I guess you can glaze over those and still get the plot. I have no clue. I felt like I was reading a different book when I read those comments. But yeah, that's my spoilery-free review of Ninth House. I thought it was a great book. It has this pacing, like I've said in my wrap-ups, that is very overwhelmed detective, never gets to sleep. That was a weird thing. Like, how are you going to be going to Yale and handle all of this? Like, going to college is a lot of hard work, but I'm very, very excited for the sequel. And I don't know, I hope this helps you figure out if you need to pick this up or not. I thought it was a really good story. So comment down below if you read it, what your experience was with Ninth House, if you think you'll pick it up. Like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.